I graduated from seminary in 1981 and went to Western Pennsylvania to serve the first church to which I had been called as an associate pastor. The senior minister there, with whom I struck up a lifelong relationship until he died 2.5 years ago, told me he was glad that I had arrived because he was leaving the next day with the young people to participate in their annual mission trip. So worship is up to you, he said. Do whatever you feel like you want to. Sunday came, got through the service, preached a stellar 6-minute sermon. Probably people in the congregation were glad because Paul tended to be a little long-winded. Pronounced the benediction, offered a sigh of relief, and headed for the back door to greet members of this new congregation to me. Off in the corner stood a woman who clearly was waiting until everyone else had left. I thought perhaps she had a question, wanted to introduce herself, or had a pastoral need that needed to be addressed. She came up to me, very serious, said, "Young man, I spend a great deal of time fixing my hair on Sunday morning, and I expect to get my money's worth. A 6-minute sermon doesn't cut it because I want people to admire what I've done." I had all kinds of responses go through my head, but fortunately I kept them all to myself. I learned that day, and frankly through 40 years of ministry, learned what I did not learn in seminary. And that was that people, including pastors, come to worship with mixed motivations. To show off their hairstyle, never an issue for me. To observe how others look or dress. To spend time with friends in their community of faith. To find some quiet from the noise of their lives. It's true of all of us. We bring with us, whether it's in person or by way of video, mixed motivations. But 40 years after my ordination as a pastor, I'm convinced that beneath all those secondary ones is a primary motivation to discover fulfillment to some deeper searching, perhaps a subterranean seeking we've not even been able to name yet. For hope, for peace, for life direction, self-acceptance, a deeper connection with God. Or I suspect we wouldn't go to church on Sunday morning or watch church by way of a video. Technically, Epiphany is Thursday, the 12th day after Christmas. But here at Church on the Main, we're observing it today. It's the day that for centuries Christians have marked the arrival of the Magi for their visit to the Christ child. It's one of my favorite stories, this one recorded in Matthew 2, because it lends itself to all sorts of embellishments. Magos, the Greek reads, came to Jerusalem from the east. Every Christmas pageant has 3 of them, identified as wise men or kings or astrologers or magi. In the 7th or 8th century, they were named, numbered, and described. Melchior, an old man with white hair and a long beard. Gaspar, young and beardless and of ruddy complexion. GQ kind of guy. Balthazar, a striking man of color and heavily bearded. Each apparently from different Gentile countries east of Jerusalem, who somehow met along the way in this spiritual pilgrimage. They'd read the stars until they needed to stop and ask for directions from Herod, who upon consultation with the religious folk of the day told them to proceed to Bethlehem, where a star had arisen, announcing to the Magi that the Jewish Messiah had been born. And there the Christmas pageant trio knelt and presented their gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh. They then returned to their own countries by a different way to avoid the evil, duplicitous Herod, who only wanted to murder the Christ child so as to protect his own kingly reign. The actual story in Matthew is much less pageantry than time and tradition have made it out to be. We don't know how many magi there were, only that they presented 3 gifts. We don't know what countries they hailed from, only that they traveled from somewhere in the east. We don't know their names or what they looked like or how long their journey to and from Bethlehem must have taken. And Matthew himself doesn't tell us if there's more significance to their visitation than paying him homage. At least he doesn't tell us in so many words. And that's why it's one of my favorite stories. Because we can read into it and expand on it and imagine whatever helps us in our pilgrimages. That is, as long as we don't make it too sentimental, too Christmas cardish, too much childish pageantry. Because at its heart, it is a very adult story. The author, Stephen Bauman, captures it when he notes, from Matthew's point of view, the Magi were authentic spiritual seekers. Even though their methodology was stargazing, they discovered a remarkable truth that transcended their immediate context and led them into alien territory. In a surprising location far from home, they found what they had been searching for in the birth of a child to a peasant woman. That very adult message is that we all search, that each one of us is a seeker. As St. Augustine stated it in his oft-quoted prayer, our hearts are restless till they find their rest in Thee, O Lord. I would suggest that, as may have been true for the Magi, our searching may well take some time. And as may also have been true for them, there will be many misturns along the way. The journey may take us to surprising places. Again, I quote Stephen Bauman, who observed, "We live in a time of great spiritual agitation. Our culture is rife with seekers of every sort who attempt to make their way to the most fulfilling destination as they respond to deep interior longing." I would venture today to say that we all share some common deep interior longings for an end to this damned pandemic, for world leaders who will respond radically to global warming, for justice and peace to be realities known by all people, but especially those who've been denied those gifts for so long. We have our own personal ones too, for physical or emotional healing or well-being, for the restoration of some fractured relationship, for relief from continuing economic hardship, from you fill in the blank. But may I suggest that beneath them all, as real as they are, is a longing for a God who may not provide immediate or even long-term satisfaction to our hungers, but who promises that God will fulfill our deepest desiring for one to stand with us and accompany us on all our journeys, whether they take us wherever they take us, whatever we meet at their endings, perhaps even to alien territories where we discover fresh things about ourselves and about the God for whom we are seeking. And this, for me, is one of the most critical pieces of the story that Matthew, at least in the account, leaves out. There is a second seeker. It is the God who longs to stand with us, who will search for us like the good shepherd hunts for a lost sheep until you and I are found. The responsibility of finding is not ours alone. In fact, it is only ours secondarily. The God who took on human form in the Christ child, visited and worshipped by those from the East, is the primary actor in the drama. In our dramas characterizing your life and my life. The good news of this Christmas and Epiphany seasons is that God will not cease searching, even as we search, until God's longing for us is fulfilled. In her book, Bread for Tomorrow, Praying with the World's Poor, Kate Compston captures the essence of this day. Beckoning God, she begins, who called the rich to travel toward poverty, the wise to embrace your folly, the powerful to know their own frailty, who gave to strangers a sense of homecoming in an alien land, and to stargazers true light and vision as they bowed to earth. We lay ourselves open to your signs for us. Stir us with holy discontent over a world which gives its gifts to those who have plenty already, whose talents are obvious, whose power is recognized. And help us both to share our resources with those who have little and to receive with humility the gifts they bring to us. Rise within us like a star and make us restless till we journey forth to seek our rest in you, even as you journey forth to offer your rest in us. Amen.